Hello.
Hello.
Mic check. Check check. Bike. Bike. Bicycle. Pop. Pop. Popsicle.
I know this
Test.
one.
Test. Testing 1 2 3. Mic check.
You introduced that to me a little while ago. Do you remember?
That's my favorite mic check joke from my days of stage performance.
I have used it a few times, I think, since you taught it to me.
Oh, in what context did you use it?
Well, the most recent time I can think was we just had like a Jira ticket and someone had titled it Test, and then I just wrote out the funny part in the comments. I don't know, it probably isn't quite as good written down, but
Right.
yeah.
I'm glad to hear that my influence has spread to the opposite side of the world.
Mm-hmm. Is this an original Freeman joke?
No, I don't believe that I came up with it. It's probably something I read, like 15 years ago and thought it was funny and then incorporated into our shows when we were doing them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember the origin of it anymore.
Right.
So I am officially a homeowner and officially a landlord now.
Hey, wait, a landlord as well? How does that work?
How does this go? I'm involuntarily a landlord. The day I closed on my house, a woodpecker decided to move into my attic via drilling a hole through my siding. So I have a tenant.
Cool. Are you sure it's a woodpecker and not someone living up there?
Oh, I'm sure.
I've
seen it plenty of times and have battled it for the last couple of weeks. They are very hard to get rid of.
You've battled it. The Great Woodpecker War of 2022.
Well, apparently it showed up like the day before I closed on the house, and the sellers noticed and went up there and patched the hole. And like the day after I closed on the house, I heard it back banging on that patch trying to get back through the hole, which it achieved, and then proceeded to like pull insulation out of my attic, and my front yard was covered in insulation.
Oh, it sounds like a real bastard of a bird.
So I looked up how to scare away woodpeckers. There's no like really good solution. There's lots of things suggested online, and they all say they'll work temporarily. Apparently they don't like things that move or shiny things, and Mylar balloons was a recommendation. So I got a couple of those because it's very high up out of the way. Like it's 2 stories up in the air above some bedroom windows. Hard to just reach where this woodpecker is getting into the house. But I did buy some Mylar balloons and like stick them out the window so they were floating right around that hole to try to scare it away.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I thought it worked okay. I didn't see it for a couple days. But it did come back after a couple days when I found more insulation in my yard. So the next thing I did was I took like a piece of sheet metal and I put it over its hole. And again,
Right.
It was gone for a couple days. And that I put a sheet metal over it, and then as I've been working at the house for the last couple weeks, every time I hear like the beginnings of it returning and trying to peck, I go over to the bedroom that it's above and I bang on the wall to scare it away.
How did you get the sheet metal up 2 stories?
A very tall ladder.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I did that, and it worked again for like maybe a couple days, and then I came back to the house one morning a few days later, and there was another hole through my siding into the house now. So now I've got multiple holes. So yesterday, I got a delivery from Amazon
You bought a rifle.
for a rifle. Well, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Woodpeckers are a protected species, and you're
No.
technically not allowed to kill them.
Oh, really?
In fact, if you have to call the woodland service, if you had to kill a woodpecker for some reason, you have to call the woodland service and you have to provide evidence to them that you've tried every other method to scare it away. Mm-hmm. And then they have to come to your home to watch you kill it.
It's their little kink. They just love to see people killing woodpeckers. So they've written it up as a procedure. Yeah, okay. All right, so killing's out of the question. All right, what did you get from Amazon?
Well, I ordered something that is labeled as like a bird deterrent, but it comes labeled with very specific instructions that says, "Don't use this a specific way, or the bird will die, and that's illegal. Don't do this."
Just hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Right.
It's
just like a gluey adhesive that you're supposed to put. I put it around the hole and like on the ledges it lands on. It's supposed to be like not comfortable for them to land on, so they're not going to land on it, and that'll be the end of it. But also, it's like if it gets stuck on their feathers, they can't fly, and that's kind of the end of the bird. So,
but if you found the bird in that state, you could presumably fix it. You know, get rid of the glue, shave it. I don't know. Can you shave a bird? Probably not. Pluck its feathers. Feathers grow back. I don't even know.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't know. I put some of that around last night, and it did not return today. So I don't know what the situation's gonna end up being with that. But that's where I'm at currently. So
could you provide it?
And then I've
with another house.
I mean, potentially. I'm surrounded by trees. You'd think that it would have given up the fight by now to live in my house when there's so many easier options for it to go for.
What's it after? Maybe it's after the insulation. Maybe you could buy a birdhouse and insulate it and put it somewhere.
Well, I think it specifically doesn't like the insulation because it's been throwing it out of my house to clear space.
Okay. Provide it with a birdhouse that's not insulated.
Yeah, and just like stick it over the hole so it goes in there instead.
Oh, genius. Yeah, I didn't even think that far ahead. Nope. Perfect.
Yeah, because I don't know what else, like a birdhouse anywhere else, I don't know that I would recognize or pay attention to it.
Is it after the heat from your house?
Maybe. That's a good thought. There's different kinds of pecking that woodpeckers do. It's like a territorial thing, the noise. And so they'll just peck against things that make the most noise to like claim their territory or for like a mating thing. And it's clearly not that. And they also do it to eat. So like if the wood was rotten or had insects in it, they'd be like trying to peck those out. It's also clearly not doing that. It looks like it's definitely nesting because it's the start of breeding season for woodpeckers. So it's just trying to find a home. So I was thinking that if I just scared it away long enough that it gave up and found a new home, that would be the end of it and it wouldn't keep returning. But for 2 weeks, that has not been the case.
Is it an issue that it is making a home in your roof, in your attic?
I mean, the biggest issue is it's putting holes in the side of my house.
It's coming into summer, though. Can't be too big a problem.
Okay, temporarily not a problem. So, yeah. It's just my first hurdle of home ownership. The very first day was my first burden.
So if you didn't own the house, would this be the landlord's problem?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's what I get.
It kind of reminds me of the situation when you get bed bugs and then you go and like look online, like how do I get rid of bed bugs? And there are just tons and tons of this might work, but you know, if they're really in there, what you're going to have to do is just light the bed on fire. So, I don't know. Have you got insurance on your house yet?
Yeah, I have insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, that might end up being my first claim.
Attic fire in Engulfs house. I can see the headlines already.
I just moved all my stuff in. Should have given me a heads up a week earlier. I could have
just postponed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have also gotten a pretty decent start in setting up my HomeKit accessories. And I have had quite a headache with some of them. First of all, ceiling fans. Hunter ceiling fans are basically the only ceiling fans that I've been able to find at all that have HomeKit support built in. And I put very heavy air quotes around that because I knew going into it that it was going to be flaky because it had really bad reviews online.
Gross. Yeah.
But so far, I've had one set up in one room for a week and have not been able to get it to like even pair to its own app the whole time.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. I set up a second identical one in another room, and it took a few tries, but it's actually paired and seems to be relatively stable now that it's set up. So I don't know if the first fan I put up is just a bad fan or what the deal is with that, but I'm going to keep battling it. I've got 4 identical fans, so I'll put some more up and see what my experience is with those, and then decide if I need to like send that one back and get a replacement or what the deal is there.
Well, do the reviews typically say like it doesn't work at all, or it works for a bit and then it stops working? Because if it's like a ton of 1-star reviews because it doesn't work at all, well, just return it and buy another. But if it's the case that this is going to stop working after a little bit, then I don't know if you should continue.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, these fans I got for very, very cheap. Did I tell you the story of my ceiling fans already? Was that 2 weeks ago?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So the fans that I got are called Aya fans. They're by Casablanca, which is like a sub-brand of Hunter. And they use the same Wi-Fi Connect app. And I thought they looked cool when I was looking for HomeKit ceiling fans, like a couple months ago, but they were too expensive. They're like $500 per ceiling fan. And they weren't something I was seriously considering for my house. But they went on sale a month ago, and for like half price. So I thought if I could get 2 for the price of 1, that would give me a chance to play with the Hunter app in a couple rooms and see if I liked it. And then if not, I had 6 ceiling fans I'm putting in. So if I didn't like it, I could do something different for the other 4. So I ordered 2, and then they got delivered, but not delivered to my house. So the status said they were delivered, but they weren't. And so I contacted Hunter and said I didn't get my ceiling fans, and then they just sent me back like, okay, we shipped you 2 more. So they sent me 2 more. Mm-hmm. And then in the meantime, the first 2 they sent me, some very kind neighbors a few blocks away said, hey, these got delivered to our house, and they brought them to me.
Oh, how did they find you?
Because my address was on the box.
Oh, so they were correctly addressed, and then
it was just the delivery guy dropped it off at the wrong house.
The wrong place. Oh, well, that was nice of them. You moved to a nice suburb.
Well, yes, my suburb's nice. This was still at my parents' house because I hadn't closed on the house yet.
Oh, okay.
But I ended up getting 4 for the price of 1.
Lovely.
So I.
But you need 6.
So yeah, I still need to figure out 2 more. But for as cheap as I got them, I kind of want to try to make them work. And there's really not any other options. So even if I can set them up and they work halfway for a year or 2, and then I find something better and replace them, even if I get a couple years out of them, I think it's worth the money because I didn't spend that much on them. So I wouldn't feel too bad replacing them in short order.
If the HomeKit aspect of them stops working, there's just still the backup switch though, right?
Right. Yeah, it still works from the Switch just fine. It's just the smart stuff isn't that great.
Okay.
I did get I'm going to say Slage because that's how I've always heard it, even though you say it's Schlaga or whatever. My door lock installed, and it's been great. The home key feature is super cool. I can just go up and tap my watch on it, and it unlocks my front door and lets me in. I love that. That's been consistent. Throughout my battling with the ceiling fans, I read that they only function on the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network or band.
Right, for the best, probably, because it's got slightly better range than 5 gigahertz.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't need, massive data transfer for smart home accessories.
You would hope not.
The problem is that my home network was done with the Google Wi-Fi mesh routers, and those present both bands as one network, and then the routers themselves decide which one you need.
Mm-hmm.
And I had read that somewhere in that configuration, like, it's not being communicated correctly, and so Google's presenting the 5 gigahertz network, and it can't connect to the fan, and that could potentially be one of the issues. And there was no way to remedy that. Like, Google doesn't let you split the bands out into separate networks or anything. So I decided that now is a good time to upgrade my home network, because the Google Wi-Fi routers are a little old. I've had it since like 2016. It doesn't have Wi-Fi 6 support, and it doesn't have support for the new HomeKit secure router features. So I thought I'd buy a HomeKit router setup as well. So I've got the Linksys Velop AX4200, which is...
I just shudder when I hear the brand Linksys. Please go on with your...
Not a fan of Linksys?
Experience. No, not particularly.
Well, maybe this will maybe I should have consulted you. It was just the HomeKit router that Apple sells on their store. I'm like, well, if this is what they recommend, this is what I'm going to go with. So I ordered that, which is just a 3-node mesh network, like the Google Wi-Fi. And I set that up a couple days ago, and have had mixed success with it. After setting that up, I was able to pair one of my Hunter fans. But I've had spotty internet, which doesn't make any sense for me at all, because I think the 4200 aspect is like, it covers 4,200 square feet, which is huge. It's way, way bigger than my house. So I figured my coverage was going to be not a problem at all, which was good because I have exterior security cameras going to be setting up, and I wanted to make sure those had strong signal. But there's been a lot of cases just in the course of today, actually, that my phone's been connected to the network but not had internet.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm having a hard time nailing down what the issue is, and I have so many moving parts in my network. I have new home hubs running. I have new routers. It's a new house with like a new modem, so it could be that the line running into my house isn't steady, or the modem is not stable, or maybe my routers are bad, or what. So I'm still troubleshooting that.
It's just not an ideal time to be switching up your networking equipment as you introduce all these new factors, because it's going to make it like 10 times harder to get to the bottom of what the problem could be.
Yeah, I agree that will make it harder. At the same time, switching out networking equipment, especially your wireless routers, is such a bear. Going through and like reconnecting every device on my network, I figured that if I was going to do it anytime, it would be when I'm unpacking things and one by one setting them up. It wouldn't feel like a burden to have to walk around my house and figure out every device connected to Wi-Fi. So yeah, 6 one, half dozen the other. It's going to be a burden either way, but I'm not sure what's going on with that right now.
But the Linksys will solve your problem of being able to split the two Wi-Fi network wavelengths?
I think you technically can. I didn't need to. It seems to just be smart enough that the fan was able to connect to the right band. So if I have to, I think they have like a web portal that I can get into my router through and then do that. But it seems like doing that also messes up the handoff when you're going between nodes. So if I don't have to, I'm going to avoid that as much as possible.
Right, because then every every node is going to have 2 networks. So you're effectively going to have 6 networks in your house, which the devices somehow need to work out what they're doing as you walk around and pick up different signal strengths.
One pending upgrade I'm going to make to my home network as well is I'm going to get Ethernet cables run throughout the house. So I won't have like one router and 2 like beacons that are amplifying the signal. They're all going to be wired into the network when it's done. So hopefully that will help with internet consistency, assuming that it is the routers that are the cause of my spotty coverage at the moment. What else? I got my Hue stuff set back up. I will say I did one thing. After years and years and years of just using the same home and tweaking layouts and accessory locations as I moved, I decided to do a complete wipe of HomeKit and like set up a brand new home and repair all my accessories as I went, instead of moving things around. And that has been a huge burden. It's such a big burden, it broke my phone.
You really ripped the Band-Aid off, didn't you? You went full rip. So I opened the Home app. I chose to remove the Home from the Home app. And when you press the button, nothing happens. Like, it takes you back to your home screen. And so I was like, is this doing anything? I pressed the button a bunch of times, and it just kept taking me back to, like, your main tab, which I assumed behind the scene it was doing something, which it was. But I force closed the Home app and tried to reopen it to see if maybe that will refresh the data. But then the Home app would not reopen at all. I'd open it and it'd immediately crash. So then I thought, well, I'll just restart my phone and then it'll work. So I shut my phone off and put it back on, and then it got into a boot loop. Oh, wow.
And nothing would get it out of that boot loop. Not, a hard reset or anything else. I even let it loop until the battery died, and I charged it back up and immediately went back into a boot loop. I had to plug it into my computer and put it in DFU mode and completely reinstall the operating system to get it to work again.
Gee, okay. That's some serious business then, just deleting the Home from the Home app. I'm just...
Deleting the Home and then being impatient, I guess, is what did it. But
I'm just pondering which part of that could put the phone into a boot loop. Or, did you have stuff in Control Center maybe?
Yeah, it puts your favorite home accessories in Control Center.
So, just thinking out loud, maybe there were still some tiles in the Control Center which didn't link up to anything in the Home because the Home was gone, and then that, try and load Control Center D or whatever, and then it'll just crash the phone. Just that's my first thought. Could be something. It could be anything.
Yeah, that was a burden. And then also another aspect I didn't think about is all the devices that I did have paired. When I tried to set them all back up, they're like, we're paired with a different home, and you need to get invited to join that home in order to manage us. So I had to figure out how to hard reset things like the Hue hub and the Lutron hub, and there was something else. Anyway, I had to hard reset all my HomeKit accessories. So if you can avoid deleting a home and just reorganizing it, I would suggest doing that instead of what I did.
Okay, noted. I think I've moved house maybe 4 times since the Home was introduced, and I have never deleted it, so I'm probably safe.
I've moved a lot more than that, and my accessories have become an amalgamation of my last 3 houses, and they're all labeled wrong, and there's rooms that don't exist anymore, and I just didn't want to manage it. But I did get my everything reset there. I've got some Hue bulbs set up, and I did get some of my Lutron switches installed, and those are working well once they work. Lutron is pretty bulletproof. I went and bought a new Lutron switch today, and it's one of their just standard toggle switches. In the past, all I've used is their dimmers, but I just needed something that was on-off. And I tried installing it in my hallway, and it was not working for me. And I eventually just threw in a dimmer switch that I had, and it worked great. So I don't think it's me or my home's wiring, because I could get to work with another thing, but this one switch was not working for me. So it might be broken. I might need to replace it.
Okay.
But I think that's it. Oh, HomePods. That was the other thing. HomePods won't work if you delete your home. You gotta hard reset your HomePods too.
That's scary. Hard resetting HomePods can occasionally lead to a bricked HomePod, and then Apple's not going to do anything about that. You're just going to be stuck.
Don't say that. I still got 3 more I have to hard reset. I have 2 set up so far.
Look, I think it was just a very specific software version that had this issue. It could have actually been during a software update back in the day. HomePod still get software updates. Yeah, they do. Yeah. But yeah, there was one that came out where it would kind of hang when it was trying to do the update, and then if you did a hard reset because it was still in the Home app, then the HomePod was just bricked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you should be fine. Just, I don't know, cross your fingers when you're doing it.
Okay, good to know.
Because HomePods are worth quite a lot these days.
Is that a segue?
Oh, yeah, eventually. Just keep that in the back of your mind.
It's a teaser. It's a setup.
For 5 minutes.
Other HomeKit thing. I got the Logitech Circle View doorbell installed.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm still waiting for that to appear in Australia because I want to stick that in my door.
It's pretty cool. I had to do... I had to do some rewiring to my house. Like my house had a wired doorbell, but the transformer coming off the breaker box didn't have enough volt amps, so I had to buy a new one and put that in my breaker box so that it could power my doorbell. But once I did that, it's been working great.
Do you have
yeah
a degree in electrician stuff?
I studied electrical engineering in college for a while. That's the closest thing I would say I have to that.
That's right. I think you've told me that before. But you do seem to have more than your average amount of knowledge about how all this works.
I think I'm very much well, now I'm not gonna remember. I'm right on the other side of that peak of like I think I know a lot more than I actually know. Dunning-Kruger, that's what it is. I think a lot of it is Dunning-Kruger, and I just I don't know what I don't know, and I'm dumb enough to play with mains voltage, but I know just enough to be dangerous, I think.
What the heck is Dunning-Kruger?
Oh, look it up. It's a phenomenon where people who know the least think they know the most about something.
Dunning-Kruger. Okay. I've certainly heard of that phenomenon, but I never heard the name. Dunning-Kruger. Gotcha.
Yep.
I thought you were saying Dunn and Kruger. Yeah. Okay. Yep, so you wired up the Blackie with the correct ohms, and your volt amps are at the right percentage of your total ampere hours. Got it?
Yep, nailed it. Doorbell's cool. Going to Logitech and HomeKit secure video devices from Nest, which has been my only other home security camera experience. There's positives and negatives. It's nice to have everything built into HomeKit, but it doesn't record 24/7 video like Nest does.
Do you
but
want
Nest
that
charges
though?
you for that?
Isn't that just going to saturate your upstream if it's constantly uploading from all these cameras?
It's not been something that I've had an issue with in the past with all my Nest cameras. But I also felt like I didn't use it enough that I wanted to keep it around. I was willing to switch to the Circle View. There's always going to be those one-off cases every once in a while where it's like something that I want to check on that's not going to specifically register as motion, because I set up zones to only like notify me or record if people like walk up my sidewalk to my porch. So not every car or someone walking their dog going by is going to set off my cameras. But sometimes I've wanted to go back and view like, hey, did the trash truck already run by, or can I get my trash cans out still this morning? Or did UPS already drive by and not drop off my package? Or, things like that the camera won't pick up. And those are the instances where 24/7 recording is nice.
Why won't that motion activate the camera and kick off the recording though? If there is motion.
Because of that zone I set up. Because I don't want to get notified every time a car drives down my street. So I have the activity zone to just be like my sidewalk and then my front porch. So that and my front yard.
If the zone included
enter
the
my
street,
property,
then every car going past would be like a visitor.
Right. I'd get a notification of activity or something like that. So it's a trade-off. But I'm gonna give it a shot. It's cool though, because it integrates so well with HomeKit and all my other accessories. it pulls from my photo library to get faces and names. So like my mom walks up and rings my doorbell, my HomePods say like, "Hey, your mom's at the door."
So one thing I read about the Circle View doorbell is that it could be a little bit slow. So what's your experience? Like when your mum comes up and presses the doorbell, how quickly does your HomePod respond, or your watch give you the video, or whatever it might be?
So I don't have everything in my house set up yet. And I haven't actually tried to respond to anything from my phone. But as far as people walking up and pressing the doorbell, my HomePods ring immediately, which is the thing that I care the most about, is making sure I hear someone at the door as soon as they get there.
Yeah. All right. Well, if it's immediate, then that's fine. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's just the I haven't tested, like, no one's rang my doorbell while I'm away from the house yet for me to test how quickly I actually get that notification.
Oh, okay.
But I think that's less important.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm not home. Feel free to break into my house right now.
Yeah. It is cool. This is another cool perk of it being built into the Home app like this, is I can set up accessories that I want, like, related to that. So I can have like my porch light and my front door lock right there in my camera view. So if it's someone I know that rings the doorbell, I can like pull up the video and talk to them and unlock my front door right from that video chat kind of window, or turn my porch light on or whatever.
And presumably set up automations as well to do cool stuff.
Sure, yeah. I probably wouldn't want to trigger any automations off of a specific person. Like if I say unlock my front door when my mom walks up, and then it mistakes, a stranger for my mom, that could be bad. But I think that is the extent of where I'm at with my HomeKit stuff right now. I've got some more lights to figure out, a couple more ceiling fans to figure out, and then that's it.
And that's it. And hopefully it's all nice and rock solid on the Linksys router.
Man, this was an expensive router. Don't make me doubt myself.
Look, I'm sure I'll be fine. It has been a long time since I've had experience with Linksys. We're probably talking about 10 years. So, I mean, over 10 years, things change.
I mean, the reviews I read online about Wi-Fi 6 mesh routers, it seemed like far and away Asus was the brand to go with.
They make the Nighthawk series, do they not?
I believe so. But whatever mesh technology they use specifically is apparently, unbeatable. But I really want to go all in on HomeKit and get the full benefits of having full HomeKit accessories. And HomeKit routers are cool because they put all your smart home devices on a separate secure network so that they can't, let bad actors in. So yeah. I thought it'd be cool to have.
Oh, well, I'm sure you'll be reaping the benefits for many, many years to come.
I'll keep you updated.
Please do. I have a pre-show topic, but it's not going to go for 34 minutes. It'll go for 2 minutes.
Okay.
I was just wondering if you knew about this thing called iCloud PD. So iCloud PD, you don't know?
I've never heard of it. It looks like a typo in the show notes.
It does a bit. It is a Python app or script, or I don't know. You run it out of the terminal, so it's not like its own app, but you install it with Python and run it with pip. All these things, I don't really know what they mean, but this is what I'm doing.
That's a little backwards. You install with pip, but okay.
Okay,
yeah.
I should probably just say what it does. It is a command line utility for downloading your iCloud photo library. So how I came about this is over the years that iCloud photo library has existed, eventually it grew to be way too big to keep a local copy. So I was always just on the optimized setting, even on my Macs. But I was always had in the back of my head, like, what if Apple screws things up and then I lose my iCloud photo library? So what I would do is like just plug in an external drive and then move my iCloud photo library to the external drive and then set it to download originals and leave it for like the 3 weeks it takes to download it, because for some reason it's incredibly slow at downloading from iCloud. And then I would let Backblaze back it up and Time Machine back it up, and the whole process was just kind of excruciating.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, if for any reason in like the month that you are doing this, you need to unplug the external drive, then it wasn't a rare case that the photo library would just become corrupted and you would have to start a new one and kick off the whole process again. Incredibly painful.
Oh, okay.
So I was just looking for a better solution, because I was partway through one of these download my entire iCloud photo library to an external drive, and it was painful already. So I looked for another solution, and lo and behold, some people have written a little Python thing, I'll call it, to simply download to whatever directory you want all your photos out of iCloud. It doesn't have anything to do with the Photos app on the Mac. There are a couple of caveats which I don't mind, but it downloads the originals. So, like, if you have made edits to the photo, it's probably not going to save them, or you won't be able to retrieve those edits. But I'm fine with that, because this is like a worst case scenario. I just want to have the original photo somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if I lose my dramatic cool on a photo from 2012, then whatever, I can live with that. So yeah, it works a lot faster than simply waiting for the Photos app to download everything from iCloud. Like, I had it running just overnight so far, and it's already done 10% of my photo library, which is way faster than the Photos app.
I'm sure that you reviewed all this code before you just handed an anonymous Python script your iCloud password.
Yes, a thorough review of the code.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit worrying, isn't it? But it is an app. I keep calling it an app that's existed for quite a long time already. Like, this isn't a little, a little flash in the pan that's popped up recently. I think just looking at the repository, some things in there are at least 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hope that, someone would have done something about it already if it was malicious, or at least I would have seen something like on the subreddit, iCloud PD stole my credentials, something like that.
Right.
It seems to use some sort of, I don't know, like, what would you call it? Well, when I signed in, I got an alert from Apple saying that your credentials were used to sign in from Safari on a Mac. So somehow the terminal is using Safari to authenticate the session.
I don't imagine Apple provides APIs for this specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
So I imagine what it's doing is like faking a user agent, and manually downloading all your photos. Maybe with some kind of automation or something. I don't know. I'd have to look at it to see how it works, but.
Well, I'll task you with it then.
Oh, good. Thanks. Task me. Give me some homework.
It's only 10,000 lines.
Okay.
You sound super skeptical about the whole thing.
I mean, I think people are generally trustworthy, so it's probably fine. And like you said, this has existed a long time and seems like there's no negative feedback on it. I'm just saying this sounds like something that could be dangerous.
Okay. Hopefully I can just get the task done as quickly as possible, then change my password.
Yeah. Let's see.
I mean, and of course I keep my nudes in offline storage. Callback.
That's been a while. What's the size of your iCloud photo library?
It's I don't know, it's probably approaching 1.5 terabytes now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, no wonder you just need to get computers with bigger hard drives so you can keep it downloaded at all times and you don't have to battle this.
Yeah, I should, but do you know how expensive they are?
Yeah, in US. You could get one for a couple $1,000.
I could.
You could here's what you do. you buy whatever the oldest computer is that still runs like Mac OS 12, and you just like something that still has like an iMac with a big hard drive in it, or you can put a big like spinning disk hard drive in it, and you just have it run in a corner, quietly keeping up to date with your photo library, and then you can occasionally go in there and copy your files off of that to Backblaze or something.
I could do I just don't like having extra things sitting around, like a spare computer in the corner. You inevitably have to contribute some time towards maintaining it, like no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that annoys me. But that's kind of the only thing I've got going against it. Otherwise, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even have to run Mac OS 12. It could probably run anything. It's anything from, I don't know, like El Capitan, or I'm sure it'd be fine to access iCloud photos still.
Yeah, that's true. You could pay me $100 for something, 10 years old. I don't know what Macs are worth over there. Maybe they're very valuable.
Not the old ones.
Okay. Yeah. You could get away with like, I don't know, a 2012 iMac, or I would say a MacBook Pro or something, but you're going to need to put a bigger hard drive in there. So maybe a Mac Mini.
Probably easier to get something with a 3.5-inch hard drive.
Yeah. Or you get yourself a new MacBook Pro,
mm-hmm.
something with Apple Silicon, and you just you pony up for like the 8 terabyte version, and you never have to worry about it.
So 8 terabytes, then it's going to exceed my iCloud storage. I'm going to end up with everything out of iCloud then anyway.
We already talked about this. By the time we hit that problem, hopefully they'll have upgraded the storage tiers.
Yeah, I'm hoping for WWDC, June 2022.
We'll have to get something set up with Christian.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yep.
Shall we talk about any topics today?
Yeah, let's do it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you know that your armful of HomePods is actually appreciating in value since Apple discontinued them?
Yeah, I have known all along. That's why I have so many. It was an investment. I'm a savvy business person. Not a sucker easily conned by shiny Apple products.
Their HomePods are not shiny at all. Well, I guess you could say the top plastic was a little bit shiny, but it's mostly
until
matte.
they get dusty. Yeah.
Yeah, they do get dusty. Yeah, so The Verge picked this up and reported on it that HomePods, especially ones that are still BNIB, brand new in box, are selling for more than the price that Apple was selling them for. 25% more, they note. You can find them on eBay for. It just goes to show that people still want HomePods, and I still wonder why Apple discontinued them, because they're such a good product, and they're a product, as I always said, that targeted like the hardest core of Apple fans.
Right. Yeah, they're great. I am really worried, especially now that I have to reset the firmware on all of them, that if I lose a HomePod, I don't know what I'll do. I did order a couple minis, by the way. I didn't mention that. I've got a yellow and orange one coming. But they're not going to replace the big ones. Even a stereo pair of HomePod minis is not nearly as good as one big HomePod. So if I ever lose one of those, I'm going to be very heartbroken if Apple hasn't replaced them. Probably not heartbroken enough to pay $600 for one, but very disappointed nonetheless.
Especially considering that they do seem to be kind of unreliable. There was that component, I think, in the power supply that would crap out eventually and kill the HomePods. Although stories of that have kind of petered out this year, and I haven't seen too many report bricked HomePods because of that issue. So I think they're going to keep going up in value until Apple releases the long-rumored HomePod with a screen, and then the original HomePod will probably drop to nothing in value after that.
Right. Yeah, as soon as they have some kind of product in their lineup to replace this. It's clearly got some hardware issues, and it's old. It's running what is it in there? The A8 chip, and it's slow even compared to the HomePod Minis that have an A4 or not A4 W4 W5 something like that in it. Just the Apple Watch chip. As far as the specific tasks that HomePod does, the Mini is way faster.
Do you think so? See, I have heard and read people say that, but that's not my experience at all. I think they're probably both the same speed, and if anything, the original HomePod is more reliable at answering to requests than the HomePod Mini.
Really? I wasn't even aware you had both around.
Yeah, I picked up a Mini a little while ago.
Okay.
And it's forever doing... I have heard about the Mini having Wi-Fi issues. Now, I did certainly experience a couple of those when I first got it. You would ask it to play something, it would be fine, and then you'd ask a few hours later and you'd have to restart it for it to do that. Now, that hasn't happened since like the first week that I've had it. But if I was going to ask both HomePods to do something, I think the Mini would have like a 5% chance of doing that. Something's taking too long. Can you try that again? And this is on stuff like set a timer, which I thought was all done locally on the HomePod Mini. But the original HomePod would never do anything like that.
Well, maybe I've got a bit of bias then, because in the past, my only Mini has been a bathroom device. And so I used it much less frequently than the other ones that were in main rooms of my house. So maybe it was just as, if not more inconsistent, but I used it so much less that it felt like I had a higher success rate with it. And I was only noticing the failures on the devices I used more.
Yeah, it could be. Yasmin has just given up on using the HomePods as well for anything that requires voice authentication or a voice match. Because
yes.
Okay, well, it's not just her. Because for me, the voice match is perfect. Like, it'll never, ever ask me who is speaking. I must just have a really consistent voice. But Yasmin could be doing, she'll go through the kitchen cupboards and the fridge before she goes out shopping and be like, yo, Siri, add milk to the shopping list. She'll do, 3 successfully, and then the 4th one will be like, who's speaking, please? And then be like, Yasmin. And then it will say something stupid like, good morning, Yasmin, and not do the add reminder to the shopping list. She's given up because it's such a frustrating process. But I'm interested to hear what yours is then, what your experience is.
Equally bad. And surprisingly, I'm the only one in the house it's trained to recognize the voice of. So you'd think that it'd be pretty good at it. But I would say even more inconsistent than Yasmin. I'd say 75% of the time, at least, I make any request, like adding something to a shopping list or sending a text message or making a phone call, checking calendar, whatever. And it says, who's speaking? And I tell Siri, it's David. And without fail, the response is never like, okay, I'll do that now. It's like, you have to authenticate on your iPhone to continue. And so I got to pull my iPhone out and look at it so I can do a Face ID scan to continue what it was doing, which at that point I should have just pulled up my phone in the first place.
Yeah, and that's what Yasmin's resorted to, just doing it on her phone, and it's fine.
Yeah, the worst is when you're trying to make a phone call, because I loved my HomePods for phone calls where I could be sitting at my desk working, say into the air I want to talk to someone, and then suddenly I'm talking to them. That was great. But now every time I say, yo Siri, call so-and-so, they say, you have to authenticate on your iPhone to continue. I pull my phone out, it scans my face, and then my phone places the call, so it's not on the HomePod anymore.
Incredible.
So I need to... There, at least there used to be, I hope there still is a case, it used to be that the authentication, voice recognition was an optional setting, and you could turn personal requests on unrestricted. And I think I need to go back to that to have any hope of using Siri on my HomePods anymore.
Yeah, maybe just give that a look and see if it's still available. I thought if you turned off personal requests, then that was it. You couldn't set reminders or do phone calls anymore, but maybe they do split out the recognition. Or have you simply tried retraining your voice a few times?
I haven't tried retraining my voice. I was surprised Siri didn't ask to retrain when I reset my HomePods. So maybe I need to go through that process again. But there was a time prior to HomePods having voice recognition that they had personal requests that just anyone could ask. And it wasn't linked to multiple accounts. So it was just whoever set up the HomePod, you could get their text messages whenever they were in the house. That was like the first couple of years of HomePod. It behaved that way.
Yeah, so maybe, try and resort back to that if possible.
Right.
I'd kind of be surprised, though.
Yeah.
So Apple launches the self-service repair program for the iPhone finally. This was announced about 15 years ago, from memory. No, they did say it was coming this year. I can't remember the specifics of when, but it's finally launched, and it's interesting. I mean, the first few times I clicked through to the site, I was sure the site had been hijacked. I
Right.
clicked through from 9 to 5 Mac, and I thought I guess they mislinked it. So then I went to Apple newsroom article and then found the link in there and clicked it, and it took me to the same weird looking site. It turns out the site is legit. So it's selfservicerepair.com. So it's a place where you can buy parts for our iPhone 12s or newer, and only in the United States at the moment, which is annoying. And the second annoyance to me is that the back glass is not one of the parts. So if it did come to Australia, I still can't repair Yasmin's iPhone 12 mini.
Right. Yeah, they clearly contracted out the entire self-service repair website to, I don't know, some other company, clearly, to design and even host, because it's not even like selfservicerepair.apple. It's just selfservicerepair.com is the website. No reference to Apple at all. But kind of cool, because I was wondering when they announced the program how they were going to facilitate people, how they're going to allow this to happen. Because iFixit sends little gel packs out that you put in the microwave to heat up and place on your phone to loosen the adhesive. Whereas Apple has very expensive tooling for disassembling and reassembling iPhones. And their solution is they will just rent you their tools for not an unreasonable cost. It's like a $50 rental to have these thousands of dollars worth of iPhone disassembly and reassembly tools sent to you. So kind of cool that they provide you with the best tools they have for doing these repairs.
It also means it doesn't really work out to be very economical to do it yourself, because you have to pay for the part and then the rental of the tools to do it. And
Right.
it gets fairly close to the cost of just taking it into Apple to have it done there.
Well, you don't have to rent the tools if you've got
Yeah, true.
the iFixit stuff floating around. You could always do it that way. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of by design. They're like, see, wouldn't you rather do it, just give it to us, and then it won't void your warranty, and you're guaranteed it's going to work, and see, this was a bad idea, and But yeah, I'm sure they're not going out of their way to make it as cheap as possible. But I'm still surprised by the price. It's lower than I expected.
Have you looked into what the self-service repair means to the warranty of your phone?
I am fairly sure that it voids your warranty,
Right.
but I'm not sure. I haven't read that myself. That was the result of a discussion that I had heard. I think on the latest episode of ATP, they were talking about how it voids the warranty, and that's where my knowledge is coming from.
Okay. Now, from what I've read, the parts themselves are covered by a 60-day warranty. 60
Okay.
days? What if you bought a new display for your phone and it craps out in 3 months? When Apple did that for you, well, at least in Australia, maybe the case is quite different in the United States, but it basically meant you had another couple of years on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the warranty period remaining on your phone. But to give 60 days on parts seems excessively low.
Right. Yeah, or your battery starts swelling after a couple months.
Apple does not provide any technical support for self-service repair products or self-service repair. So you're on your own unless selfservicerepair.com is willing to give you a hand with something.
You'd have to, I don't know, be really desperate to save those $50 or whatever between the cost of bringing it into them to fix.
That's exactly how it feels.
There's a couple cool things though. Like if I wanted a different color SIM card tray on my phone, it's $7 and I can order an Apple OEM SIM card tray in whatever color I want to stick in my phone.
Yeah, okay. Are you going to do that?
I don't think so.
Okay. So the parts that are covered, let's just have a look at the iPhone 13 battery.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably a very common one. Bottom speaker, maybe not so common. Camera, display, yes, welcome. SIM tray, like you said, and the Taptic engine. And that's the extent of it.
I mean, besides the back glass and like the main logic board of the phone, that's pretty much all the components. Because they wouldn't sell you like a new A15 to figure out how to solder into your existing logic board. That's basically always going to be one component.
No. Yeah.
So that is pretty much everything.
There are other parts though. What about Face ID?
Oh yeah, you're right.
What about the lock button?
Yeah.
What about just the chassis of the phone?
I wonder if all of that just starts getting to the point of, I don't know, what they deem too in-depth. Because once you start getting to the back of the phone or the chassis, you've removed every component from the iPhone. I mean, I guess it's like, who are they to judge what's too in-depth at this point? But they seem to have done basically what's going to be the easiest fixes, replacements. Because, most of these components are, I've always heard them referred to as like Lego connectors that snap into the logic board at the end of the ribbon cables. Like most of these are Lego connector replacements. But anything that like requires, it looks like screws once you get to the inside of the phone is not covered.
Mm-hmm. So altogether, it's a little overwhelming, but I guess at least something.
It's a start. I'll be interested to see where this goes and what they end up offering for other products. Yeah, it's cool to have an official way to buy OEM Apple parts for the first time ever.
How about the Apple Studio Display poor webcam quality? It's not a software bug after all. So that was the headline from 9to5Mac. And it's as a result of, well, first, all the original complaints about how poor the quality was from the new Studio Display's webcam. And then in the latest macOS beta, the Studio Display got a software update, and it did make some changes to the webcam, but it's still pretty lackluster. And
yeah,
looks...
I don't think the takeaway here is particularly new news. It was already hypothesized at the time of the initial Studio Display reviews that the real issue was the extreme crop they were doing on this 12 megapixel image on the fisheye camera, so they could achieve the center stage effect, and no amount of post-processing or anything like that is going to resolve just the physical limitation of the sensor and how severe of a crop they're doing on the image. And this software update that was allegedly going to fix the issues and ended up being very minor is kind of just more evidence that this is not something that they can remedy fully with just a firmware update to the monitor.
Yeah, that's disappointing, isn't it? It's quite a. It's not like they've tried to fit the world's thinnest camera into a tiny chassis. There's a little bit of room in there for a decent camera. Yeah, they could have stuck anything in there, I guess. So 12 megapixel. That's about as high a megapixel count as they've got in any product for now. Probably see something higher this year, but did they really need to stick center stage on the display?
I don't feel like a Mac needs it as much as something like an iPad that is maybe being handled and passed around a room or sat on a coffee table for a FaceTime call, iMacs are pretty stationary, so it'd be pretty easy for everyone to get in frame. So I feel like it's less necessary in that context of sitting at your desk. But I totally get why it's this big new feature that's on all the iPads. So if it wasn't there, everyone would be asking, why doesn't the Mac have this feature? Which was already what people were saying with the new iMac.
The other thing that about having a wide-angle camera in an iPad is that you are typically holding it a lot closer to you, so you need a wide-angle camera because even at arm's length, you need a wide-angle camera to get people sitting next to you. Like if you had 4 people sitting on a couch at arm's length, you need a wide-angle camera. But
right
on a screen, you've got the screen, and then you've probably got a keyboard and a bit of space, and maybe the desk. So you could probably fit 2 or 3 people side by side in a regular angle camera.
Right.
And even if you couldn't, there's probably space behind you to all move back. It just seems unnecessary.
And how often are you in a video call on your computer that you have multiple people on your end? It's very frequently the case that if I'm placing a FaceTime call from my iPad, it's usually like, hey, the kids want to get in a call and see the grandparents or something. That's a very regular occurrence. But if I'm like in my office on my computer, it's usually a work video call and it's just me sitting in a chair. I don't need the camera following me around.
Lastly, the actual aperture of the camera is only 2.4, and I think we're at like 1.8, so a lot better light gathering capabilities on the latest wide angle cameras. But you're going to save all of those for the iPhone, apparently.
Whatever revision the Studio Display gets at some point in the future, if they took this rumored 48 megapixel camera from the upcoming iPhone 14 and put it in there, I think that would alleviate a lot of their issues with just such a bigger image to work with.
As long as the sensor size also increases appropriately and we don't end up with these they're already microscopic pixels, but even smaller pixels, which are terrible at gathering light. So yeah, just hope for a larger sensor at the same time as an increased megapixel count. I mean, and Apple's doing that because the 13 Pro already got a much larger sensor than the 12 Pro, right? Or was it bumped up first in the 12 Pro Max?
Maybe the 12 Pro Max got the first one.
Yeah, they got the first big sensor.
And they're certainly not hurting for space in those big monitors. So
exactly. We have a couple of screen protectors out of China by way of Weibo, which is what a social media app. But anyway, the point of it is that we have a different sort of... Well, we don't have a notch on the Pro phones anymore, according to these screen protectors. So the Pro phones, both the Max and the standard Pro, have gone from a notch to cutouts in the screen which aren't connected to the top of the phone. So we've got one pill-shaped cutout for Face ID and the camera cutout for the camera. This doesn't flow through to the non-Pro iPhones though. They seem to still have a notch smaller than the 13s. I think so.
It certainly looks small in these images.
It does. And the other thing of note is that the Pro phones have a longer aspect ratio than the non-Pro phones.
Oh, is that right? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so my theory about that is because the bezels on the Pro phones are going to be thinner, it means that you actually have a longer curve, and therefore the safe area on the phone is smaller. And so you need to have a taller phone to have the same size safe area. So the same size rectangle requires a taller phone. Does that make sense? My description of it?
Yes. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It just means that area at the top of the phone for like status bar or whatever is going to be huge.
That's true.
And it looks like it plays out to that when you look at these front glass images that we have here. because the lozenge and hole punch of the Pro phones looks like it extends farther down into the screen than the notch on the non-Pro phones.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a minimum amount of glass you have to be strong.
Right.
Like the amount of glass between the two cutouts and the top of the phone would be incredibly thin and probably fragile if they were in the same spot as the notch.
It just makes no sense. Like, it's clearly done just to differentiate the Pro from the non-Pro phones, so they look different and more modern just because they're different than the notch design we've had for the last 5 years. But you're not gaining anything out of it because that little strip of screen above the cutout is not going to be usable for anything.
Technically, I don't think we're gaining anything, but looks-wise, I think it's a dramatically different look. I think it looks a lot better.
Yeah. My only hope is that we get a great wallpaper that spells out phone with the cutout being the I.
Yeah, right.
If Apple doesn't make that wallpaper, someone will.
Yeah. You could make it yourself.
That's right. So, yeah, this is still just a stepping stone on our way to under display Face ID at minimum, if not the whole camera array at some point in the future.
I don't know if we're ever going to get like proper under display camera, because physically having something in front of a camera is going to degrade the quality no matter what. Just like physically having something there,
right?
Unless it's perfectly clear, but even that could introduce like flares and glares in front of the camera. To me, it's just not a trade-off that's worth having. For like losing a tiny bit of screen is not worth having a reduction in quality on the front camera, which is historically just struggled to match the quality of the back cameras.
Right. Yeah, I agree that obscuring the camera will degrade it no matter what. And I don't think it's a hardware limitation that have to be overcome. This would be like, how good can your denoising get on this image where, you know, you have this expected grid pattern of pixels that's going to show up on top of every image. You know, how well can the image processor on the A20 chip or whatever remove that and make it seem as if it doesn't exist? That would be how they would have to approach that.
But not having it there to begin with is just going to make it even better. So
right.
just leave it clear. And if the studio display algorithm improvements or anything to go by, it's not going to do an amazing job.
Yeah, I think Face ID is a good opportunity to get under the display, though. I think that could happen, at least a lot easier than a selfie camera.
And then we're going to have a phone that looks like the Galaxy something from like 3 years ago. Yeah,
this hole punch design is I mean, I guess if Apple really wants to make it their own, they're going to have to do something different. But I don't know. At this point, there's not much more they can do because all screen is the end goal, right? So we're all working towards the same end point here.
And I think this is a pretty promising step towards that, even though it kind of doesn't make sense when you already have a very small notch to do this. It's like a stepping off point from a notch to a complete screen, edge to edge.
It'll at least make people feel like they got a newer, fancier phone, which is one of the biggest selling points, one of the most important things.
I'm looking forward to watching some screen-to-screen, some edge-to-edge movies on the iPhone 14 Pro Max.
You think that's going to be your phone?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards it quite strongly.
That's a big jump up from your Mini just last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I'm trying to do more and more on my phone, so I think the Pro Max is the one to get. I did have the iPhone 7 Max, and the size never bothered me, so
right.
I know it's quite a chonker in comparison. But yeah, I don't think the size will bother me.
Worth noting, since we haven't said explicitly yet, no 14 mini. But do you think they'll keep around the 13 mini to like have a phone still in that size for another year?
That's a good question. they've still got all the tooling to make it. So, and it is like the cheapest iPhone 13. So I can see them keeping it around.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility as well. And the 13 is a perfectly good phone. I think a lot of people would be happy with that as a new purchase for the next couple years still. So I think it would make a lot of sense to keep in their lineup. Kind of almost as like a new SE kind of phone.
Yeah, with the SE sticking around too, of course.
Right, as the ultra budget option.
Yep. So the App Store, well, Apple has started to remove outdated apps from the App Store. So apps that no longer receive updates, or apps that haven't been updated in a while, the developer of those apps has received an email called App Improvement Notice with a warning that if they haven't been updated in a significant amount of time, then you've got 30 days to update them before they are removed from the App Store.
Right. Yeah, and worth...
How do you feel?
Well, not great about it.
Okay.
Because outdated is... I wouldn't call it the right word in this case. It just means hasn't received an update recently. But some things can just exist as a finished product. You know, a port of a game or just a game in general. You know, it can reach an end state where like, this is the whole game and I'm not going to add more levels or whatever. And so it can just exist on the App Store for years as something people can buy and play. And I shouldn't have to push, you know, a build up every year just so Apple doesn't delete it. Guy Rambo, I think this was not a tweet of his, but something he actually said on Stack Trace. He had to issue an update to an iMessage sticker pack, which is you know, something that has no code in it at all. It's just a collection of images. But he had to push a new one out because they were going to remove his sticker pack because he hadn't added new stickers or changed the project at all in a few years. So I think they're approaching this a little aggressively. I understand the motivation because the thought would be that if it hasn't had an update in a few years, then it's abandoned and the developer is potentially not checking that it still supports the latest hardware and operating systems fully. But I feel like a better solution to that would be potentially for them to flag the apps or have some kind of indicator like, hey, this is, you know, hasn't been updated in a couple years, so it's not guaranteed to be fully compatible with the latest operating system or something like that, versus us just losing classic apps on the App Store. Because, you know, there's cases where that maybe this beloved application was made by a single developer and that developer has either moved on or passed away or who knows. And there's no one to update this app and it's just going to go away because Apple decided they want to delete it instead of let people still download it.
Just in response to that, if the developers passed away, then they're not paying the $100 a year for the App Store for their dev account anyway, so the app will just disappear.
Oh, I suppose that's true. I've never thought about that. I assumed once your app was up there, it was up there. I've never paid enough attention to know that if I stopped paying my developer fee, they would just pull my app. But I suppose that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that argument goes out the window then. But still, they could have moved on to be bigger things and not interested in supporting an application. It's just a shame that means it's going to be deleted and not even put in some kind of like archived state or whatever that's harder to get to. Not, you know, like not pushed in the search or whatever unless you know what you're looking for.
I think the fact that these developers who have apps on the App Store are still paying $100 a year for it to be there means that they think it's worthwhile for the app to be there.
Right.
So if they think it's worthwhile to be there, then they should probably be maintaining it more frequently than every 2 years as well.
Well, it depends on what you mean by maintaining.
Yeah, true. Well, so let's take a game, for example. Sure, a game can be finished. Like, all the levels are done, all the game mechanics are done. But, like, what if a new aspect ratio screen comes out next year? and you need to write a couple of lines of code to support that. That's not, I mean, the game is a finished product, but you should still have to do things like support a new aspect ratio.
But is it better to play a game that's letterboxed on the newest iPhone versus that game not being an option to download at all? Like, I'm not saying that developers shouldn't support it, but I think that it should still exist even if it's not perfect.
The number of just crap apps that still exist on the App Store, despite all of Apple's previous attempts to solve this, and I'm thinking along the lines of, if you update your app, it has to be built on the iOS 14. Oh my god, Siri is just... I hope that didn't kill my recording. I turned on the Yo Siri on my Mac during the week, and turns out that was a bad idea. Alright, and switched off
I've never
now.
had an issue with it. You didn't even say anything approaching Siri. You said like Apple.
No, yeah, I can't... I don't know. Anyway, it's off now.
Okay.
Yeah, so Apple has made attempts to like clean up the App Store, I guess, in the past by having limits on which versions of iOS you can target if you provide an update for your apps, and that makes sure that the iOS 10 screen size is supported, and but there are just still so many apps, and it's nearly, I don't know, my experience is nearly always like niche apps to do with, I don't know, connecting to your solar panels or looking at a webcam, a security cam, or all these like niche apps where some company has had someone come in and make the app and forget about it. And now it hasn't been updated in many years, and it's just a pile of crap.
Sure.
And
yeah.
if companies like that were forced just to get, like 8 hours of dev time on their app every year just to keep it in the App Store because they have to, I can't help but see that as a good thing.
I mean, if I think companies like that are going to, take the minimum time, recompile their app against the latest SDK, fix whatever bugs pop up, or like compile errors pop up, not even bugs, and then push it back to the App Store. And I don't think that it's going to be in a better state because they spent, one day on that a year.
Well, it might be though. It might be in a better state because they're targeting a newer version of the SDK.
Right. Yeah,
and they're
it's possible.
expecting things like the iPhone 10 screen size now. Some other cases I can think of, and actually an area that Apple could even extend this program is to the Mac App Store. And one specific example I can think of is a few years ago, I had an urge to play Grand Theft Auto Vice City and bought it on the Mac App Store. I know, crazy thing to do. But I think it hadn't been updated in like 5 years, and it wouldn't even launch. And then, of course, I went and checked all the reviews for the app, and like it had 4 years worth of reviews of this app doesn't launch, which I probably should have checked first, but I just wanted to play it that badly. Now, if Rockstar, a little indie company, had been forced to recompile it and resubmit it to the App Store at least every year, I could have been playing GTA Vice City on my Mac.
Yeah, I guess the not being supported can go multiple directions, because you can definitely be like that where it's just, it doesn't work at all. But if it just runs not as well as it could, or letterboxed or whatever, like if I could download the old flight control game and it plays on a small screen in the middle of my phone because it hasn't been updated in 10 years, I would like to do that. I'd like to play with it just for nostalgic reasons for some of those old App Store games. But unfortunately, it's just not on the App Store anymore, and there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against that. Besides, just the App Store would just be chockers with unplayable games at the same time because,
right.
A worse version of Flight Control just stopped launching after iOS 12.
Right, yeah. This is certainly the easier approach for them. It's just kind of a blanket, hey, your app's too old, update it or it's going to get deleted. Instead of them having to either figure out a way to moderate old apps or aggregate them somewhere, or on a case-by-case basis when things actually stop working, then trying to send the developer that email. So from Apple's side, I definitely get why this would be the approach they would try to go with.
Yeah, I just keep thinking, if the developer's paying to be in the App Store, then it's worthwhile for them. So they should make the minimum effort of maintaining the app. I think that's what it comes down to. But I also see your point.
What do you think, listener? Leave a comment on our subreddit, and maybe you'll be featured in the next episode of the Blue Bubble Podcast.
Why did that require more of a radio voice? Is it because you're talking directly to the listeners?
Right, yeah. You're not worth the radio voice.
Oh. Your voice, your default voice is a radio voice. I always get your radio voice.
That's my push for some community interaction this week.
If you've made it this far, like and subscribe.
Follow us at twitter.com/BlueBubblePod.
That was good. You should be a voiceover artist.
No.
Your talents are wasted in software engineering.
My daily Zoom calls get it. That's not a waste.
I think I've told you before that I do the answering messages on my company's phone system.
Oh, do you really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because of my elite radio voice.
So, I don't have like the correct lens, I suppose, to view this from. But as far as Australian voices go, yours is considered premium. Is that what you're saying?
Ultra premium.
Okay.
Pro Max.
All right. Good to know that I'm getting the best of the best here on this podcast.
It's nothing to do with me being the only one with a microphone. Better than like an inline headphone microphone.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm James VDM on Reddit and Twitter.
And I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.
And you can find the show notes at reddit.com/r/bluebubblepod.
All right. I hope I said our Twitter handle correctly earlier. I was just making that up on the spot. I was improving.
I'm sure people will find us.
You're sure people will even be looking for us?
No, not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the dog just walked in. Perfect timing. It's like he waited for us to finish.
Great job, dog.
Great job.
I
may not get this posted tonight because I'm working at a wedding for the rest of the day. So I'm short on time.
I don't think anyone is going to miss the episode in their feed if it comes, a day later. So I certainly won't hold you accountable.
Good. Thank you.
Anytime. I don't know that it's something we were going to mention or not, but we didn't mention it last episode. And I thought it was, we got a pretty cool message recently, on our 100th episode of the podcast. You shared, an excellent prediction for the iPad Magic keyboard, by a listener named Isaac. And he ended up reaching out to us after that episode, just to say that he heard it, which was great to hear that he's still around and listening to our episodes, but also offered to reach out to us in the future with any more confident predictions that he ends up having. So hopefully we hear from Isaac again in the near future. I know I am not sure how Twitter messages work, because that's how he reached out. He sent us a message, and then it says that he left the chat, and then you and I both responded to him, and then I was like, oh, he's gone. So I re-added him, whatever all that means in the context of Twitter direct messages. But just in the off chance that didn't work out and he didn't see it, I thought it'd be worth calling out. That appreciate the kind words.
Huh. I'm just seeing that now. He left, then I was added, and then you added him. Yeah, well, I can see the messages before I was added, so... Oh, but... No, but it also says I'm added at the top. So I'm actually added twice. Yeah, weird. I'm not... I'm not very experienced with the Twitter direct messages.
Right.
Last one before that one was many years ago. Yeah, well, hopefully he saw that.
Well, hopefully Elon Musk will fix all of that.
Hot off the press.
Uh-huh.
As part of this is an update for the App Store improvement that we're just talking about.
Okay.
We've got some new text. Developers of apps that have not been updated within the last 3 years and failed to meet a minimum download threshold, meaning the app has not been downloaded at all or extremely few times during a rolling 12-month period, will be notified that the app has been identified for possible removal. Okay, so we have new criteria.
Okay.
This was less than an hour ago this was posted. Oh, on Daring Fireball, so perhaps earlier than that. And you will now get 3 months instead of 1 month to provide an update for that.
Okay.
And you can appeal app removals. Our entire discussion is now irrelevant.
This changes everything.
This changes everything.
I think this is a happy medium compromise.
Yep. That's it.
All right.
Okay.